Public Q&A presents AskReddit question. Marriage counselors of Reddit. What's the stupidest reason a couple has made an appointment? My anger management group facilitator told us a funny story about a couple that came in for counseling. The husband wanted to write a book. The wife said she would work and do everything around the house for a year while he worked on his book. So he quit work and wrote his book while she did everything. The book got published and was a hit. The publisher asked him to do a book signing tour. The wife was furious. She had supported him writing the book and she was done. They came to the appointment and explained the situation. The therapist asked the wife, "So what would it take for you to be okay with the book tour?" She said, "A trip to Hawaii with my sister." The husband was like, "Really?" Done. The appointment was over in 5 minutes. Edit, since a few have asked, he couldn't tell us the title of the book due to confidentiality. If only it was always that easy. Husband, she forgets the laundry in the washer. Wife, okay, but I'm busy. Maybe you could put the laundry in the dryer if you see it. Husband, yeah, that's not my job. That was the least of their problems. The 1950s husband. Those are somehow abundant today. I worked with a guy in the army, he got out a year or so ago, who wanted to be the only source of income in his household. He would constantly bitch and moan about how she did nothing all day and only spends his money, but when I suggested that he tell her to get a job, I figured that would solve both issues. No. He vehemently defended his position of "I'm the man, I bring in the money so she doesn't have to work." I think I face-palmed so hard that day I bruised my forehead. I've heard my friend say to his wife, "I wish she would do this and this and this." I'm not saying I want a 1950s wife, but while she's taking care of his child 24/7, cooking for him, cleaning as best she can for not only him but his family members that live with them too. And he's mad because she can't get a job, and when she does, he's mad because she doesn't clean. My sister-in-law made an appointment for marriage counseling because her husband greeted their dog before her when coming home from work. I have no option. The dogs are literally at the door, ready for me to try and not trip over them. For real. I can't even greet my toddlers first because the dogs are like, "Nah dude, we were here long before you, get out of the way." I have to put the kids on my knees and then pet the dogs while they're jumping up at me. I don't know why this has given me the mental image of a man with toddlers, as knee pads. Dogs have no concept of marriage. They drop whatever they're doing/chewing and bring it along to greet the pack member who returned. If wife wants to be first in line, she has to do that as well. If the dog is at the threshold and wife is across the room waiting, I'm not going to pass the dog by, start talking to the wife, and then turn around and greet the dog. What's more disrespectful? Stopping for 5 seconds to say hi to a dog before saying hi to your wife and starting up the end-of-day conversation. Or skipping the dog, kissing wife, then ignoring the wife again to pay attention to the dog instead of continuing the end-of-day conversation. Just get the dog bit out of the way, and then pay attention to the wife 100% for the evening. I was a life coach for a bit before I realized it was more administrative work than I wanted to do. I wanted to help people, not fight inner organizational political fights. During my brief time, one of my clients was really struggling with the color of dog that her husband got for her. She wanted a specific breed of dog since she was a kid, and her husband did a bunch of research and got her one from a good line of the breed, but its coat was darker than the dog she imagined, and she was really struggling with it. We had a few sessions about expectations clouding your happiness, and it turns out the dog was the most explicit example of a much bigger issue she had in her life. But I had to seriously put my WTF on hold when she told me about the shade of her dog being a problem. My specialty is children and families, but during the pandemic I was assigned whatever came in because it has been super busy. One lady called and spoke with me first about how her husband was horrible at communication and never listened to her. She asked for a couples session. As soon as she ambushed her husband with "There is a therapist on the line that wants to speak with you," her husband screamed, "You called a therapist because I don't want to paint the house purple." She wanted me to convince him to paint the house purple, and like any normal human who sees colors, he refused to listen to her. Ah yes, the superpower of having eyeballs. Oh vacuous ROM grant that woman eyes. Edit. Thank you for my first award. Kind stranger had an argument with my mom because I wanted to paint my room purple. She said purple was for depressed people and old women. I'm a 17-year-old guy and just really like purple. Edit. Didn't think you all would be this excited about purple. I'll do my best to read all the comments. LOL. Back in high school my friend had a lot of purple shirts. And by this, I mean he only had purple shirts. He had like 24 of the same plain purple shirt from JCPenney. His closet was hilarious. He just liked purple a lot. It's like a cartoon character who has a closet full of brand less solid color shirts. Wait, am I a cartoon? Reading some of these makes me wonder if counseling would have saved my marriage. Then again, I think actually wanting to save your marriage is a prerequisite for marriage counseling to be successful. My uncle and his wife, reasoning. She lost a frying pan. I get that it's a stupid argument, but how the fuck does you lose a frying pan? Cupboard hob, next to sink, into sink to soak, next to sink because other things need washing. Angry wife puts all the washing in the garden out of spite because husband never does the fucking washing up and the kitchen is a fucking mess. Raccoon steals frying pan. I can totally see this sort of thing coming up between my husband and me. He refuses to learn where anything in our kitchen lives. So if he unloads the dishwasher and doesn't know where something lives, instead of asking me, putting it to one side to ask later etc., he just shoves it somewhere random. I spent a month looking for my spatula once. He denied point blank that he had touched it. Eventually I found it wedged under a sugar bag in my baking cupboard. He denied he'd put it there. We are the only two people in the house, and I know the spatula lives in the goddamn fucking drawer with the other utensils. The argument on its face is about a lost spatula. But the reality is the fight is about why it went missing in the first place. And the subsequent denial of involvement in said loss. Edit. Cannot believe this is the comment that blows my inbox up. Thanks to all the armchair therapists who think they've nailed my marriage down based on an anecdote about something mildly annoying my partner does. Bigger thanks to all the people who've clearly been, or are married, who get that living with another human being isn't perfect and sometimes they do one or two tiny things that irritate the shit out of you, and sometimes a rant feels good. Everyone concerned, please rest assured, I'm not trapped with an emotionally abusive husband. Just a bit of man-child whose mum should have done a better job, but who overall is a good dude. Never know when you have to use it as a drying pan murder weapon. She disposed of, obviously. It's always the dishes. I don't see couples anymore because I cannot have one more conversation with adult human beings about the various philosophies of dishwashing. Dad told me that the secret to a happy marriage was a dishwasher and 2 bathrooms. Cheaper in the long run as well, both in water saved and in therapist's double sink in the master bathroom, is a huge improvement as a younger person. I want to say that the game is rigged. We've learned from our parents, don't rush into marriage, test out sexual compatibility, check and check. But do you know how long it takes to establish dishwashing compatibility? It was one thing I brought up with my fiancé. I hate doing dishes. Stuff gets under my nails, it takes forever, all awful. My fiancé doesn't mind it. I'm happy to do any other chores. He hates laundry, I'm indifferent. So we've struck a deal. I aspire to be as grown up as you. I can't trust anyone else in my house to wash the dishes correctly, they always miss something. Whenever my boyfriend does dishes, I always rewash most of them cause he always misses something. We will eat sauce-based food, and stack the plates, and my GF won't even clean the bottom of the plates. Makes me irrationally mad. Nothing irrational about getting mad about that. If you don't clean the bottom, then next in the stack is dirty. Perfectly rational. Did your client bring in her friends Frank, Charlie, Mac and Dennis by chance? Couldn't decide on which chicken to buy for their chicken farm, like which specific chicken, or which breed of chicken to raise in general. We have 6 chickens. I wanted 2 ornamental chickens, funny looking but questionable egg layer, and my husband was like, why though? But he loves them now. He enjoys laying in the hammock and watching them with their chicken pompadours run around. He posts more pics of these chickens than the regular ones, heck, even more than our kids. Where's the animal tax? I'm here to collect. Sounds like a Portlandia sketch, lol. Is it organic? His name was Colin. And what is your relationship like with this farm? I'm sorry, I can't speak to that level of intimate knowledge about Colin. Here's a packet of information though. It has all his papers and a few photos from his life on the farm. This is the sort of thing Mr. and Mrs. Tweety would argue about. The chickens are revolting. That's hilarious, but hey, if that's a big decision in their lives, I'm glad they had a facilitated conversation about it. You would be surprised at the importance of knowing what kind of chicken you're getting. A dispute about chickens led to the birth of one of the most famous contracts cases of all time, taught to law students across America every year, which outlines the methods courts will use to interpret a term in a contract. I present to you Regalement Importing Co. v. BNS International Sales Corp. Please tell me there was some underlying, more fundamental problem that caused the chicken thing to escalate. Like, surely that was just a symptom of the deeper issue, right? Yeah, the real issue is they couldn't decide what gauge wire to use for the cage. I work with a lot of kids, and I see far more stupid reasons that couples have not scheduled an appointment. Parents spill their guts while explaining what's wrong with their children, and 90% of the time it's the parents' marriage causing issues with the child/family. This is totally not a catch-all statement, because many children have true behavioral/emotional challenges separate from their parents' marriage. But at the same time, if you feel like your child is struggling, and you have tried everything, maybe try marriage counseling, ETA. If you are interested in couples counseling, find a provider here. https://www.psychologytoday.com/us/therapist/couples-counseling. If you have insurance, you can also call the number on the back of your insurance card and ask about mental health coverage. Find a provider in your network. You might be surprised at what is covered. If you don't have insurance and can't afford to pay out of pocket, ask the provider about pro bono services or a sliding fee scale. My mom and stepdad and I all tried to do family counseling. I was 27 at the time, and the whole session just consisted of my mom telling the therapist what a loser I was. Hadn't finished college yet, but overall didn't feel like I was a loser, and didn't know she felt that way. God bless that therapist though, because he went through all the reasons why I wasn't a complete loser, had a job, no arrests, no kids, not living with parents. It really opened my eyes to how mean my mom can be, and how she just expects everyone to agree with her, otherwise they're the stupid ones. She never went back to any more family sessions, probably because the therapist dared defy her, but me and my stepdad kept seeing the therapist separately. It honestly helped a lot. I really miss that guy. Damn, that sounds like my nephew's mother. Social workers, doctors, and other professionals all screaming that she needed to see a psych for various issues, top IMHO being narcissism. But she had decided that she's perfect as she is, and it's all everybody else's issues and fault. She eventually agreed to go with my brother to a session under the suggestion that the way to stop being told she might have issues is to get checked, and have a professional confirm she's sane. Cue the session, they walk in and the psych asks her how she's doing, and she declares she shouldn't be here, she's only here because everyone says she's crazy. Psych chuckles and says he doubts she's crazy. Her reaction: sneers at my brother, see, told you so, and struts out like she was the smartest human on earth. Yeah, she didn't end up with custody. I worked with kids with varying levels of behavioral problems. It could be very frustrating sometimes, but damn near every single time I met their guardian I was kind of, well, that explains it, fucking maddening. Oh, this is so true. LCSW here, worked with kiddos and families for a good chunk of my career, and 95% of the time, if the kid is having issues, there's a parenting issue or a marriage/partner problem. I'm an LMSW who used to work with high-risk kids and their families. Our staff used all of the usual abbreviations, EI, DD, etc. But we added one of our own. The kids we noted as being Pi would have thrived in another setting. Unfortunately, they were parentally impaired. A lot of couples schedule counseling for legitimate reasons like communication issues, but then it will come out that the real reason is something stupid, and they don't even realize it. I had a couple married 25 years who were struggling to connect, and it turned out they were resentful of each other because they both wanted to spend various holidays with their families of origin. Never talked about it, never mentioned it, just both simmered in silent resentment for 25 years. It was resolved so quickly once it was unearthed. Another couple came in for parenting challenges. Told me very casually they hadn't had sex since their youngest was conceived. How old is your youngest? 13. Both were acting like it was completely normal and fine and unrelated. Turned out it was not normal and not fine and definitely related. Referred for sex therapy, and heard the whole family happily graduated from therapy within months. Asterisk, the entire family was seeking therapy with different counselors for different reasons, or so they thought. No, they were not doing family sex therapy. I can't believe I just typed family sex therapy. ETA. If you are interested in starting sex therapy with your partner, type in your location here. https://www.psychologytoday.com/us/therapist/sex-therapy. If you have health insurance, you can also call the number on the back of your insurance card to ask about mental health coverage. They should give you a list of providers. Find a provider who specializes in couples and start there. You might be surprised at what is covered. If you don't have insurance and can't afford to pay out of pocket, ask the provider about pro bono services or a sliding fee scale. Never talked about it, never mentioned it, just both simmered in silent resentment for 25 years. Well, that's not communication issues to me, that's scary. For a whole 13 years. Pathetic, those are rookie numbers. Wait a minute. Whole family graduated from sex therapy, uneasy face. LOL. The kids were seeing counselors at the practice too. Worth the clarification. The aristocrats. A pimp and one of his sex workers scheduled a session to see me because they were having jealousy issues. They were legally married and he was unhappy with how she couldn't leave work at work. Best couple ever. What does that mean? Does she call her clients in her downtime, or talk about work with her husband? That has so many layers of dysfunction, I'm intrigued. I want stories. I kind of understand this one. My ex was a sex worker. But she had a history of sexual abuse when she was young, and because of the nature of the work, she had a hard time being vulnerable and open with me. Makes it hard to be intimate with someone who is closed off and guarded during sex. I remember thinking I wish she didn't treat me like another client during sex. Rest of the relationship was fine. We were just too young to realize we both had unresolved issues and eventually broke up. I had a friend whose girlfriend was a full-service stripper, and they really struggled with intimacy. She didn't want more male attention when she got home. She just wanted a break from being sexualized. It was sad all around. I forgot who made the video, but some dude went and joined a host club, male prostitution bar. In Japan, and it was kind of dropped that the most common visitors and highest payers are female sex workers. In the host clubs, the guys just sweet talk you and try to make you feel good. It was a weird video. Edit, sources Kdogva, it's where I saw this. After I get off work today, I'm going to watch The Great Happiness Space, which I'm told is a full documentary on this. I'm interested to deep dive now. Have a great day you all. This gives new meaning to the anime. Not a couples counselor, but someone who went to one once. My wife wanted us to go, but didn't actually bring up any of the issues that were bothering her. She let me talk about things that I knew about, but she'd been building up a list of things she resented for years, and didn't mention a thing when we were actually there. She divorced me a year later and trotted out the list then. Not a counselor, but my friend is one, and a couple came to her, unofficially, because the wife wouldn't tell her hubby when her mum was coming over because she knew he'd be sick or out that day. Who was the monster, husband or Mill? The real question. A buddy of mine was in therapy with his wife. She told me later that my friend, let's call him Gary, has a drinking problem. Me, wait. What? Since when is Gary drinking? I never saw him drink alcohol. Her, that's the problem. Oh Gary, I hope you are fine now. Edit, it seems like I worded it in a weird way. Her issue is that he doesn't drink. I once had an ex who was in AA tell me I was an alcoholic because I and my family didn't drink much, and that was an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. The early days of recovery are weird. I feel this. I have an ex who called me a drug addict because I mentioned I smoked pot twice in college, when I was 19. I was 34 when we had this discussion, and hadn't touched anything since. This same guy drank all the time, and I didn't drink much at all. At one point, I decided to stop drinking altogether for a bit because I wanted to drop a few pounds, and those were easy calories to cut out. He screamed at me that he wouldn't have dated a non-drinker, and that if I wouldn't drink with him, he would dump me. This guy was drinking nearly every single day, tried to force me into drinking against my will, and called me a drug addict for smoking pot twice 15 years before I met him. Some people are just fucking terrible. Sounds like Shelley's marijuana problem. My cousin went to counseling because her husband cuts the sandwich straight inside of diagonal. When I first heard it, I thought it was a joke. My ex-coworker once told me about an argument he and his girlfriend regularly have. Apparently, when you make a sandwich, some people care about whether the bread remains facing the same way it did in the original loaf, or if one piece gets turned around relative to the other. I don't just mean top of the loaf remains facing the same way. I mean the cut sides of the slices remain facing the slice they were originally cut from. I told my fiancé about this ridiculousness and he said, no, I see her point, and now I have to regularly have conversations about which way bread is facing. I hate all of you. It depends on the type of bread. It doesn't make a difference with the factory style one where every slice is the same square shape, but they're not going to match up and give proper coverage if it's a curved loaf. Not that I'd refuse to eat a sandwich which hadn't been made this way, it's more of a fussiness about making it look right. My husband now is 32, and won't eat a sandwich unless cut diagonal. I made the mistake of cutting it straight once as a prank. It wasn't funny. You don't mess with his diagonal sandwiches. My ex-wife suggested we go to marriage counseling because she felt we needed to work on communication. I was slightly confused since we never really fought about anything, and I didn't know that much was amiss. So I went with her, and we had several sessions, and it basically turned into just parenting classes since we didn't seem to have any issues to work on. Then one day she tells me she's bi and is going to go sleep with a married couple she's been friends with for a week, because that's the only thing that's going to make her happy. Would have been nice to know in marriage counseling that that was the real issue she was wanting to work on since I had no idea she was struggling with her sexuality. Guess there really was a communication issue. I had a similar thing except the way I found out was coming home from the gym, and there was another chick in my bed and wife was in the shower. It wasn't a surprise situation either. Ouch, that's rough. At least mine gave me a heads up she was going to go do it. I told her I wasn't okay with it, and that if she did it was cheating. But at least I knew it was coming. I'm a counselor with teenagers and kids. A school staff member dragged these two teens into my office one day, a boy and a girl. Both were clearly upset but definitely didn't want to talk about it with me. You could have cut the tension with a knife as they sat frozen in their chairs staring at the floor. I saw them and thought, oh fuck, she's pregnant. I'm trying not to panic at how to handle the situation as I finally get them talking, and it turns out they were just fighting because he sent a text to some girl. A text. At least she wasn't pregnant. Always a legitimate concern when teens are involved. Teens producing infants. And aging together. Yeah, my mom gave birth to me shortly before she turned 18. I'm 26 now and still childless. It's absolutely bonkers to imagine myself having had a baby by now, let alone an 8-year-old. Holy shit. I can't even take care of myself, lol. LMAO, I had a toxic relationship when I was young like that. She was jealous about every possible woman. Long story short, she cheated on me a lot. Sometimes the people who are obsessively jealous are that way because they are projecting their misdeeds onto their partner. I'm cheating every chance I get, so you must be too. But in the case of teens, it's often just rampant insecurity. Nobody feels good enough when they're a teenager. People grow out of that shit. I'm a clinical therapist and had a client bring in their spouse for a session. They both have sporadically treated bipolar disorder. I can only assume what a wild ride their kids are on. Poor kids, I've been on that ride. It's not all that fun. Edit. Well, I've never received an award before. Thanks, guys. Nothing is really stupid in making the decision to come in for a couples session. But the most startling session I've had was when the couple had barely sat down, and one of them informed the other that the relationship was over, turned to me and said, "Thank you for supporting partner through this," and left the office. Edit. Thanks so much for all the positive response, and for all the stories you've shared about going through this. As some have mentioned, it's absolutely reasonable to ask a therapist to help with a difficult breakup, and in this case the person who remained did become my client and successfully worked through some tough material. In the interests of confidentiality, I'm not going to share more details. I have to admit though, even as a professional, I was totally shocked when it happened, and had to work through my reaction live while focusing on supporting someone else. All part of being a therapist. Jesus, that's cold. I think I would prefer that scenario over we go to a fancy restaurant, so you can't scream at me. Oh ho ho ho, you underestimate my ex. He'd scream and flip the table even at a nice restaurant. Hey, when the opportunity presents itself to flip a table, you flip a table. Flipping tables, finds a way. I've heard this from several therapist friends. I can't imagine. I almost did this once. Went with my boyfriend to his own therapist, not couples counseling. As soon as I got there, I felt so incredibly safe, much more so than in the relationship, and I could see more clearly what was going on and what I wanted. When the therapist stated with complete calm that you may find that it is time to say goodbye, I almost cried and almost shouted that yes it is. But I chickened out because I didn't want to be a dick, and ended up regretting that for months. I went to an appointment with my, now ex-boyfriend's therapist, and they both spent the whole time talking about how hot I was and how it made sense we were together. It was expected from my ex. It was creepy coming from a 50-something-year-old mental health professional who sounded like Donald Duck. That therapist sounds like a quack. You should have seen the size of the bill. The fuck is that for a therapist? This very thing happened to my friend. He thought they were going to couples therapy to work on their communication. Less than 5 minutes into their first get-to-know-your appointment, and she told him it was over. She thanked the therapist for being there for him, and walked out. After walking out, she immediately changed her relationship status on FB, and announced she was now dating some random dude, and that she was divorcing my friend. He said that the therapist seemed just as shell-shocked as he was for the rest of the appointment. I only wish this happened to me. On our last vacation, due to all the yelling and poor treatment I was getting on that trip, I had already broken down crying at least 3 times. I said that we were going home early and getting a divorce. She had said it hundreds of times over the years, but this was my first time. Likely because of this, and the fact she didn't want to stop her vacation, she agreed to go to counseling. So when we came back, I spent a few days finding a good marriage counselor, and then noted to them I would call them back to schedule a rolling weekly appointment. I asked my ex-wife what time was good for her each week. I would go anytime, take off work, whatever. She then said that she didn't have any time, because she would be starting back up for graduate school, and it wouldn't work for her. Then I knew we were done. I had tried so many things, and when she couldn't even be bothered, I knew she just said anything to get what she wanted. I still was not sure how to leave, because I was afraid, besides being emotionally abusive, she was physically as well. 3 weeks later she came home in the middle of the night completely wasted with a friend of hers. She attacked me again. Black eye and broken nose. With a witness, I called the police, and have never seen her again besides in criminal and divorce court. Because naps. On weekends I take a nap in the afternoon. Boyfriend was not okay with that and insisted I stop. I'll never forget the surreal feeling of his roommates watching me leave his house while he yelled at me. He's not your boyfriend anymore, right? One of my best friends has a girlfriend who naps all the fucking time and drives him nuts. They'll get up, eat breakfast, then she's off for a nap. Then she goes to work, comes home, and immediately changes into PJs and goes for a nap, gets up to eat dinner, then back to the bedroom to watch TV in bed while she, you guessed it, naps. She shows zero interest in doing anything with him outside of watching TV, and he constantly has to practically drag her out of bed to do anything else. The real demon here is likely anxiety and depression. She is cocooning herself where she feels comfortable, and can just let the day pass by, but it's hurting their relationship because outside of watching Friends for the 50th time in her PJs, they haven't done anything together as a couple in years. Not a counselor, but I remember my mom telling me about my parents going to marriage counseling. The root of everything was my dad felt unfulfilled in his life. He is a drummer and spent most of his life playing in bands, but he gave that up when my mom got pregnant with my sister. He still had a kit in the garage but barely ever played it. It took them 3 sessions to understand my dad just wanted to play in bands again, and he didn't know how to tell her because he thought she would be opposed. My mom loves live music and going out, and I have no idea why he thought she wouldn't approve. That was about 12 years ago, and my dad is now pursuing music full-time in a 3-piece instrumental progressive rock band with his best friends, and my mom is his biggest supporter. Before the pandemic they were both going out to his gigs multiple days a week. They have a whole new set of friends that they love, and they're happier than I've ever seen them. Cut. Not a couples counselor, but I had a college friend post all their marriage and sexual problems. He wanted to try naughty positions, and how he was more experienced than she'd liked, and felt that he'd cheapened their love by having sex before meeting her on Facebook, and would routinely post when she and her husband would be going to couples counseling, and asked that her friends show up beforehand, so they could have a prayer circle to help the relationship in the lobby before the session. I didn't know the husband, but I felt bad for him, the way she was posting all their problems online for all to see. They met through a pen pal with a soldier who was in Afghanistan thing she signed up for at her church. She was a wait till marriage type, and the definition stage 5 clinger. When he came back they had a few dates, and got married in 6 months, and quickly had a kid. She would moan on Facebook about how she didn't understand why he said he didn't really know her. She totally misrepresented herself in the letters according to a mutual friend, so did the husband it seemed. The guy wasn't very religious either, and she'd talk about how if she could only get him to go to church, he'd love God just as much as she did. She openly posted in Facebook that she wondered if another child would bring him closer to God and save the marriage. I ended up unfriending her because I couldn't stand the craziness and whining. I've since deleted Facebook, but I often wonder what happened to them. My ex made an apartment for us when he got his side girl pregnant. I was 26 and in grad school, lonely, stressed, and horribly gaslight, and went along. At the time the therapist would say, if he hasn't changed by now he's not going to. Usually I'm trying to keep people together, but I'm not sure I can now, and I would get mad. Now I look back and things come on girl, run edit to ad. We broke up about 3 to 4 months later. It hurt unbelievably for a bit at first, but after some time, distraction, and actual effort to move forward coupled with a year of deciding to just be single, I am now doing phenomenally. It's so easy to want to keep something even if it's disgusting and poisonous, because you don't see all the lying and cheating, you see the cute falling asleep together and hand-holding. But staying is worse than leaving sometimes, and I am just so happy to be out of that, and as far away from that dumpster fire of his life as possible. A relative of mine went to counseling because his wife was having affairs their entire marriage. Their counselor told him to get a divorce. He said straight up that every relationship is not meant to be saved. He is now happily divorced, and has an amazing new fiancée 7 years later, so it ended up being somewhat okay. I needed to hear this. It seems impossible to leave, but equally impossible to stay. I'm slowly destroying myself. In the long run you won't regret leaving, but you already regret staying. Edit, thank you very much for the awards. I'm kind of blown away by how much attention this comment got. I'm happy it may have helped. I wish I could tell college me this, please just don't. Get out. Don't listen to anything, don't feel horrible. Plan and get out. Even if you feel lonely, tell yourself that you're getting over an addiction and you'll heal soon. Pinging you /Ebby45 because they always provide the best resources for safely leaving situations like this. Leave. I slept in my car for a few nights and friends thankfully took me in before I could finish the last few months of school. My ex was controlling and scary and borderline abusive. I sometimes wonder how awful it would be to be going through COVID with him, since I'm pretty well quarantined. That thought is awful. I have the most phenomenal fiancé now, has the most supportive, kind, laid-back spirit. I really couldn't do better. To think of when I was crying myself to sleep in my car that I would end up here. Whatever you have to do, it's worth it. If your ex was controlling and scary, he was abusive, hun. Don't sell yourself short because it could have been worse. I used to say that stuff about my abusive ex because I felt like I couldn't justify using the word abuse for something that wasn't physically violent. I was wrong. It was abuse. Notice how it only seems impossible to leave, but really is impossible to stay. Sometimes the devil you know is less scary than the devil you don't. From personal experience, the sooner you get out the better. It'll be the scariest but best thing you ever do. It's so much better on the other side of it. I hope you find your way out. My mum still talks about the Christmas where my dad didn't help her peel and prepare a bag of sprouts. They were divorced and he's dead, and it still comes up from time to time. I'm not a marriage counselor, but I'm in school to be a mental health counselor at the moment. My professor has worked in the field for over 30 years, and we asked him this question at one point. He answered something like this: there is no stupid reason to seek out counseling. What may seem trivial to one person can completely consume another person. What may seem insignificant to you might just be the last straw for a client. It's our job to figure out why that stupid reason caused them to land in your care. Sometimes it's a lot of minor things that built up because they don't have any good coping mechanisms. Sometimes it's a major problem that they don't want to talk about, so they start small. Sometimes it's something they don't even realize is a problem, but is causing them distress regardless. There's a lot of reasons why clients might present you with something that seems completely insignificant, but the fact is, they are in front of you, paying you money, so that you can help them improve their mental health. 99% of the time, that means that they believe getting help is worth their time and money. He then proceeded to tell us a story about a woman who believed that Ashton Kutcher was her baby's daddy, and she wanted a psychiatric professional to verify her mental health, so she could file for child support and reconnect with him. As far as he could tell, she had never met Ashton Kutcher, or even seen him in person. So, sometimes people are crazy. But not usually. Edit, the point he was trying to make is that there's always a deeper reason. It's never just my husband lost a frying pan, it's the constant pattern of carelessness, or a lack of taking responsibility on the husband's part. It's never just we couldn't decide on what type of chicken to get for our farm, it's the inability to come to an agreement on any decisions, minor or major. These little things are a symptom of the bigger problem. In the case of the woman at the end, the bigger problem was schizophrenia. There was a couple who fought because the husband stopped liking cheese for some reason. Edit, no lactose intolerance, he just stopped liking cheese. Vaccinate their child. Dad say go, mom says no. Go dad go. See dad go. See dad run. Dad please take son. Son can't run. Son's an iron lung. Not me but my buddy's wife demanded counseling after he refused to fix his habit of leaving the seat up. Apparently, the straw that broke the camel's back was he didn't realize his POO came back up, and she fell into the toilet on his old, waterlogged shit. Poseidon's embrace, I would have gone with the Kraken or something, but that's just me. Real solution, everybody puts the lid down after they're done. Everybody then gets into the habit of lifting something up before they do their thing. Bonus points for more hygienic flush with the lid down. Husband claimed Reddit said he wasn't the asshole. Wife said he was 90% of the post and Ida gets an NTA anyway. Of course, this is the case since most posters will leave out important details that makes them look like the asshole. Husband shouldn't be seeking validation from outside sources, but wife is wrong to reject the judgment of unqualified internet experts. From the other side, I ran into an ex-girlfriend after being broken up for a long time. We decided to go to couples counseling as friends to clarify some stuff from the past. We went to the session, talked about some heavy stuff, but then ended up being very supportive to each other and laughed and stuck up for each other in a weird way. At the end the counselor guy was just staring at us sort of dumbfounded and said something along the lines of, you two clearly need to get back together. I just remembered his face. He was looking at us like we were idiots. I think the idea of post-breakup couples counseling as friends might have been a new thing as well. Update, we got back together for about 2 weeks. I was away for work and she went on a vacation with another guy. When I find out, she said she didn't know she wasn't supposed to. We were very much in love for quite a few years, but at the end of our relationship she really started acting weird. She started acting out in crazy ways, cheating on me while I was at work and blaming me. She started a weird cross-dresser alter ego. She would get mad at me for this that she imagined could happen. It got really weird at the end. This was 5 or so years ago. Last I heard she had quit her job and sort of lives like a hobo. A friend of a friend mentioned her one time, and I found out she had gotten a DUI and had cheated on her current boyfriend. The counseling part was still very useful. I recommend counseling to anyone who has persistent relationship problems. I think the idea of a post-breakup counseling session is not a bad idea either, if it was a serious relationship. Saying things out loud to a stranger can make you realize how dumb a lot of stuff really is. I'll always cherish the good years with that girl. We had a very fun and interesting world together. I hope she is doing well. I learned a lot from that relationship, which set me onto the path of a much better life and a much more mature outlook on communication and relationships. I've never heard of anyone doing it before, but man, how nice would that be? Hey, I'm still dealing with the breakup. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I know it hit you hardest since I did the breaking up. Do you want to set up an appointment with a therapist to see if it'll help you through it? I'm more than happy to go. Hey, thanks. Yeah, let's do that. If only the majority of life could be so reasonable. It was actually awesome. For any kind of serious relationship, I think this is a good idea. I'm going to do it again, if possible, if I ever find myself in a similar situation. Side note, we got back together for about 10 days before she promptly cheated on me and told me it was my own fault, the reason we broke up a year prior. Last I heard she crashed and burned pretty hard. We had some good years, and I learned a lot. Wish her the best. I'm seriously so bummed that didn't work out, but I hope you find some love if that's your wish. Live your best life, that's the best revenge, pretending like they had no hold on you and being happy. Haha, yes, we were deeply in love for about 5 years. All I can do is cherish it and learn from it. We had a really fun and crazy story that could have been a novel. Unfortunately, two unhealthy people can't make a healthy relationship. Make sure your own mind is sound before going into a serious relationship. And don't be scared of counseling. LOL. Not a counselor. But I and my ex had the biggest fight, known later as the spoon incident. We were both working over 60 hours a week, and we're stressed. Nonetheless, we had one night off together, so I made sure that I had cleaned the house and everything before she came home. She came back while I was unpacking the dishwasher and put the last cutlery in the drawers. When I finally put a spoon in the drawer, she said, "That's not where it's supposed to go." I asked her whether this is the way you want to treat me after I've cleaned the house and stuff. Never been so pissed at a GF, while it was actually fairly meaningless. Cleans house. Mom comes home. Why is there a dog hair underneath the couch in the corner of the living room, completely out of sight and inaccessible to anyone? What the fuck, the fight that's not actually about what you're fighting about. When my ex and I were having problems, she suggested marriage counseling. We went to a few sessions. I found out after the divorce she only went because she thought it would make her look better in the divorce. Indiana is a no-fault state, so all it did was cost me money. So I understand the ancient idea of two virgins marrying, but sometimes, man. Guess what? Couple comes to me, guy angry because his wife apparently wears a padded bra and uses makeup, and the wife is upset because he has a small dick, but apparently acted as if he didn't. Big dick energy or whatever, the two were made for each other, truly. Did you need counseling after dealing with this? XD. I don't specifically do marriage counseling, but I did do a couples session that seemed relevant for Reddit. The reason wasn't stupid and obviously impacted the relationship greatly, but it was silly how long it took to finally understand what was going on. At first, they kept talking about the husband having a job and then another online job, which kept him from spending quality time with his wife. It was difficult to understand because she didn't know how to describe it, and he was being extremely vague. It slowly became clear to me that he was spending 3 to 4 hours a weekday, and most of his weekends posting memes. This was time that he needed uninterrupted on top of his regular job, and it was driving her crazy. So that was interesting. Stupid, selfish answer coming from a child who grew up with this. My mother scheduled an intervention. She and my sister and I met with a counselor and talked about all the things my dad did wrong. I would comment things that basically said, "I don't think that's the problem," and would be constantly shut down. We had the intervention, and my dad got sober for a while. Turns out, my mother is just an absolutely miserable child of a woman. When I lived with her, I saw glimpses of it. She broke a plate once, and when I asked why, she said, "Because I felt like it." Then when I started crying and picking up the pieces, she just drunkenly stumbled past me and went to bed. I think I was 12. She was 36 when I was born. When we went to pick my dad up from rehab, there was a group thing where they went around the room. Everyone would say something about their partner that they were there to pick up that they loved. My mother said she couldn't think of anything. My mother said she couldn't think of anything. My dad told me later in life that that was the moment he knew it was over. Turns out, they only got married in the first place because my mother's parents didn't want them living together before marriage. Scotch-Irish Catholics. Go figure. After years of dealing with a childish, emotionally stunted, generally shitty partner, he stopped trying. Then she played the victim, same as her mother, and which she continues to do to this day. She lies about being happy while being heavily medicated. I reach out to her to meet my girlfriend of, at the time, 7 years, now 8, bless her, and she somehow manages to make our schedule around the wedding we're there for just making things difficult for her and cancels, telling me more or less, if you can't meet my exact criteria, fuck you, I'm not even going to try. It's always something. I basically told her that's on her, and if you want to be a part of my life you need to try. I went no contact a few months back, and it's better for my mental health. I'm sorry, but I'm glad to hear you and your father are in a better place now. I'm still pretty fucked up and dealing with mommy issues. I'm a 30-year-old alcoholic with bipolar 1. Better than when I lived with her as a teen though, for sure. My dad got married to a wonderful woman I view as my current mother figure. For all her flaws, she means well, and is an adventurous and brave woman. She may have been the first female figure in my life that I learned to respect. I'll say this, as the male half of a 30s-something couple. There are no bad reasons to go to counseling. Sometimes, recognizing that you need help to get over a recurring argument is the most mature thing you can do. Example, my wife and I continually got into the same argument, about me being a homebody, and wanting to leave social gatherings early, and her always wanting to stay until we are the last ones there. I felt like she never appreciated the fact that I was willing to put in 4 to 5 hours of social effort before wanting to leave, and she felt like I was always asking when we were going to leave. After having the same argument year in and year out, we took it to a counselor. We finally decided on a compromise that works for both of us. If it's her family/friends get together, she gets to decide when we leave. If it's mine, then I get to decide when we leave. It's hard to separate frustration, anger, resentment type feelings from a discussion sometimes, and counselors can help with that, while also providing communication tips. Just my .02 or go in different cars, and just be cool with when the other one leaves. This is what my parents did for basically every event growing up. It was great as a family with 3 kids. Those of us who wanted to stay, stayed with mom. If you wanted out early, you left with dad. Everyone wins. Just popping in to remind everyone not to be shy to get marriage counseling even if you think it might be too stupid based off this thread. Counselors get your money, and it's still their job to help you regardless. Got a friend who does marriage counseling. We were getting drink one night, after a long week, and I noticed that he was hitting it a little too hard that evening. I asked him what was going on. He pretty much told me this. I spent the entire week with these 2 pod people. Not a single one of the pairs expressed emotion during the counseling at all, and every session they just kept beating around the bush. I swear they were trying to fuck with me. Finally, it's the end of the week, and the last session of it. Thank you for your time, but there is no need to keep up the counseling now. He moved the table so it's parallel to the wall without me saying it. He moved the table so it's parallel to the wall without me saying it. I don't get it. I think one person wanted the other to move the table parallel to their wall at home without person 1 having to say it, and once person 2 did said task, they had no more need for counseling. Not a couples counselor, but my aunt is. She's been married 7 times and is a fairly popular marriage counselor. Blows my mind. It's the mechanic's car that gets repaired last. Not a counselor *. My aunt and uncle do weekly visits because my aunt doesn't like that my uncle masturbates. They have been going for 3 years, and my uncle isn't going to budge why he keeps paying money to a counselor who clearly isn't ever going to convince him to stop. Edit, I've been gilded. Tie anon for my first gold. Session 106, husband walks in, sits down, nope, still wanking. Now they have to fill up the hour. Maybe this is his kink. They got into a domestic because he wouldn't try her jam. We really need a context here though. I had a BF who gaslight and psychologically tortured me for years. I remember how he never appreciated anything I did, and I was never enough. One day I made a special bread for him which took me a whole day to make. He never tasted it. He said, "I'm sure it's shit." That was the last straw. Somehow, I found the strength to leave him after that. But you can also look at our last moment and say, she left him because he didn't taste her bread. Nicely put. It's always something innocuous that when taken out of context sounds absolutely ridiculous. And then you discover it's just the last straw in a whole swath of dysfunctional behaviors and dynamics. She divorced me because I left dishes by the sink. Same. I made him a special pie with his favorite fruit and homemade pastry, and drove an hour to bring it to him, and he said, "Why did you make me a pie? That's weird, I'm not going to eat it." I was just doing everything I could to save our relationship, and he never noticed everything I did for him, gaslighted me, etc. I also spent over $300 on him for his birthday, and for my birthday, he went to a concert without me and skipped out on the day I had planned for us, which I was also going to pay for, smiley face. Well buddy, that really sucks. Sounds like you were really unappreciated in that relationship. Hope you found better. Nobody deserves that. They throw us away like yesterday's jam. Can't you see? You're my wife, Roy, you're my wife. He was gone too much at work. That is also the reason why she cheated on him 11 times. With his brother. He insists Jar Jar is a Sith Lord and she just doesn't care. I have never wanted a story to be true. As much as I want to believe this, I'm choosing to believe it. I need this a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. But he is not a therapist, but I'll never forget the time I went into a regularly scheduled couples appointment alone to tell our therapist that I broke up with my girlfriend the night before. She sighed and said, "Oh, thank God. Now sit down and let's talk about how you can avoid that shit show in the future." Couldn't decide to buy a dog or cat. There was a case in marriage laws in India where the husband complained to his wife that the food didn't have enough salt. The wife asked him to get the salt himself. The husband said, "If I have to do everything, why are you here? Go somewhere else and die." The next day his wife killed herself. The family of his wife came to complain, but he asked them to go somewhere else and die. They sued him for abatement of suicide. But his lawyer pleaded that he asked the in-laws to die as well, but they didn't. The wife did, but it cannot be abatement. Court declared him not guilty and set a precedent that abuses and words said in passion are not abatement. Asterisk, it's abatement. What does abatement of suicide mean? I'm not familiar with that as a term. Guy I knew from an inbred part of the country. Everyone had the same last name. Went to a counselor to deal with the issue that his brother was screwing his girlfriend. She was their cousin. Counselor said, "Nope, too weird for me," and sent him on his way. Didn't know how to decide whether to have salt and pepper, or just salt or pepper on eggs. Wow. You are still with us. Thanks for being such a nice person. As long as you are here, why not like this video and subscribe to our channel? Also, you can press the bell icon, so you won't miss any future uploads.